The Sweet Baby situation is interesting because we're seeing pretty much an extension of what happened with Gamergate. This isn't a follow up, this isn't a sequel, this is the next major arc in this ongoing series because Gamergate was never proven wrong, right? Gamergate was never established as a harassment campaign. The game journalists did a very poor job proving themselves innocent of any wrongdoing, right? There was no investigations, there was no consideration for the audience, there was no willingness to concede that maybe game journalists are paid shills, right? there was no real there was no real attempt at meeting people halfway and growing and evolving, right? No, all these people did was double down and become more and more ridiculous. Like, oh, you're just a hateful person. Oh, you're just a bigot. Oh, you're just a gamer, right? And they're doing this again on X right now, doing the same old shit, pretending that games like Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake 2 are huge, major success stories. Pro tip, they aren't. They're doing everything they possibly can to try and act as if Sweet Baby didn't do anything wrong, but in reality, the backlash has set in. And unlike last time, in which a lot of people were bending over backwards to defend the game journalists, even if you were someone who presented yourself as being countercultural to typical game journalist propaganda, people like Angry Joe and Jim Sterling, right? Back then, you had a lot of people coming up to bat for them, right? Boogie 2988 was fence sitting all throughout Gamergate. Things have changed now, right? The interesting thing about the Sweet Baby Incorporated situation is that it's the same exact situation as Gamergate. It's the same exact player base, but now you can't do the thing you did last time and pretend this is purely a political issue, right? Because that was the thing about Gamergate that really bugged me right from the get-go, was that it tried pretending as if it was a left wing versus right wing issue, when in reality it was game journalists, the establishment versus everyone, right? Now it's true that these people lean left and they're pushing a leftist ideology, but that ideology is toxic for everyone, including people on the left. And one of the things that really interests me about the current state of things in regards to games like Saints Row, Spider-Man 2, Dad of War, right? In regards to games that Sweet Baby worked on, right? Or games that similar consulting firms worked on, is that more and more leftists are beginning to see that there is a problem with forcing diversity where it doesn't belong, right? Instead of creating interesting, compelling characters of different races, of different political ideologies, of different backgrounds, different religious cultures from all around the world, right? Instead, you have this mindset where okay, we're just going to take this white person and make him brown, right? And that's been happening for a really, really long time. And it's getting to the point where a lot of people are beginning to notice that this kind of behavior is offensive to other cultures, right? Take for example the recent complaint from some random no-name website. I believe it was Kotaku, who tried writing an article about how Shogun, the TV series, didn't have any black people in it, and that was a problem, when even casual fans of Japanese history knows that there were no blacks in that region at that time. And the creators of the show were simply adhering to history, right? They were depicting the culture as it was, as realistically as possible, right? But going against that mindset, what was that? Going against that mindset, right? Trying to shove in minorities where they don't belong, right? It takes away from the culture of Japanese people, right? It takes away from the culture of that region, that place in history, right? And the same is true for white culture, right? It's not somehow different when Japanese people are being replaced. The issue is that more and more left and right thinking is converging, right? I talked about this before. I've observed this before, where the left and right have the same kind of issues with society. They have the same kind of um, the same kind of problems. They're going through the same issues, like the same struggles, but they just blame different people, right? So what that results in is that like the people on the right blame the immigrant, while like the left blames like the billionaire class with no real understanding or nuance as to like what the problem actually is. Right? There are clear, like obvious solutions to these problems, and yet no one on the left or the right wants to really acknowledge them at all and like really take any real kind of action. And the reason that people are so like hell bent on defending Sweet Baby is that like it is very clear that there's a very real like solution to this problem, right? There are like real serious actions you can take to starve these companies and like put a light on it and just kind of emphasize how this kind of thinking, how this kind of ideology, like how it's dangerous to people and how it's causing problems and how it's ruining entertainment and giving people like a very warped idea of like how the world actually works, right? You know, a warped idea of what history was like, of what different cultures are like, of what other people are like, right? Like there's a reason why people all around the world in every culture and every religion of every race and every ethnicity, like more and more these people are starting to hate woke stuff, right? That is becoming something that like a lot of people everywhere are turning their backs on, but there are a lot of people like in the cult, you know, people in like the coastal areas in the United States, usually people who have been like educated by like these prestigious universities, right? People who think they're like enlightened as to how things should actually be. Like these people are coming out like trying to say, "Oh no, we're doing good for the world. We're forcing people like by forcing white people out and by forcing diversity in, we're making the world a more balanced place. You know, this is a more equal society, right? We're building equity, like we're building a more equitable society. Like we're doing this. We're doing this for the good of society. But in reality, like, you know, you're not helping these people. You know, you're just virtue signaling, right? You're not doing anything real or impactful for any minority on the planet by like messing with white people, right? That's the reality. Is that like it's becoming obvious to everyone around the planet, right? It's causing I feel more and more as if people are starting to come closer and closer as to like what the actual problem in society is, and in a lot of ways it feels like it's being spearheaded by the gamer movement, right? Like gamers rose up like in a weird way, like people are starting to like notice things, point things out, and more even people who are like aligned with like the establishment are turning on them because they're starting to see that this kind of ideology is toxic, that it isn't leading anywhere, that it's just built by design to destroy everything that people care about. And more, I think people, not just gamers, need to rise up and stand against it.